All right. We are back in the studio today with Chelsea from Guild Mortgage with an update on homebuyer assistance programs for the greater Lake Tahoe and Truckee area. Everybody wants to live the dream in Truckee-Tahoe, and I'm the guy that can help make that happen. My name's Dave.gove, and I help buyers, sellers, and investors achieve their real estate goals. Chelsea, how's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
looking back. It looks like we talked about this back in April of 2023. So about 16 months or so ago. And a lot's been going on and some important update with this marketplace, right?
Yeah. Feels like a lifetime ago for 2023.
I know. But I wanted to catch up with you. I was speaking with some buyers the other day who were wrongfully informed that the Martis Fund down payment assistance program was out of money. And then speaking with you recently, you had mentioned that they have changed some of the parameters on that in order to access the Martis Fund. So today, I'd like to talk about the THAP, which is the Town of Truckee program, the Martis Fund, and then the Placer Workforce Housing Preservation Program. That's a mouthful, so it's the Placer WIP, as I think is what they call it, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, well, why don't we start with the changes? Well, first off, does the Martis Fund have any money?
It does. As of date of filming, yes. So they had $150,000 currently, and you can use up to $75,000 with Martis Fund. So that's enough for 2 fundings right now. When they do run out of funds, because it does happen from time to time, they then go in front of the board, request more funds, and it's been taking, I'd say, maybe 4 to 6 weeks when they do run out to refund it. So they're really good about getting back in front of the board to keep it replenished.
Okay, so basically the board has a war chest of money, and then they just put a little bit out there at a time to get people into houses. The people gobble it up, and then they go back and get a little bit more. It's kind of like asking mom and dad for a little more allowance.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
So what we do if we're qualifying somebody using the Martis Fund, before we write that pre-approval letter, before the offer goes out, we're checking with the program administrators to make sure that there is funding, because it can go quick. It can. So I always make sure to check with them so that we don't get in a position where you're in contract and you don't have the funds, because they will not reserve that money for you until you have an unaccepted offer.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's kind of a little bit of a catch-22, right? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? So you've got to get pre-qualified with not only Guild or your other preferred mortgage provider, but then also with the Martis Fund. And then you can get into contract. And only when you're in contract will the Martis Fund actually earmark that money for you.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh boy, that's a little tricky. So then if you're working with
tricky.
some other people, it's like you really got to stay on top of it and be communicating daily, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely, you always want to be in contact. And so that's why we have a good working relationship with them and making sure. And so if they're low and they know that there's some other people making offers, they're good about saying like, hey, heads up, there's a couple people out there floating right now. So you want to get moving on it.
Got it. Okay. All right. So they've got $150,000. That could be as little as 2 people or more if people needed just a little bit less assistance, but up to $75,000 each. What does it take to get approved to get that money?
Okay, so for Martis Fund, it is a loan of $75,000 at a 3% interest rate, which is different than the other 2 programs that we'll talk about. So the first start of the process is you do have to get qualified with a first mortgage lender like us at Guild Mortgage, where they need our pre-approval letter in addition to their applications. But the basic qualifications, an overview of it, is you have to meet their income guidelines, which are 180% of the area median income. So their website does have a chart that shows for the household how much that is annually. And then you do have to bring in your own 3% of down payment funds that can come from gift from family, your own savings, but it has to be coming from your own contribution. And then you have to be, the 51% of the household income has to come from within the Tahoe-Truckee school district area. And then you can purchase within the school district area as well. So it can be at the lake, it can be in Truckee, which the other programs are specific to their towns or counties. But yeah, Martis Fund services over the whole school district.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, you mentioned before that it has to be used in concert with some of the other programs. What's that all about?
Yes. So There have been different variations of Martis Fund and what they have allowed in the past. During COVID, they were allowing $100,000 of assistance at a time per person. They lowered that to $75,000. And then recently, within, I believe, the last year or so, they added the guideline that you have to pair the Martis Fund with a deed restricted program like Truckee Home Access Program or Placer Workforce Preservation Program or Hopkins Village. You can use Martis Fund in Hopkins Village because that is also a deed restricted property.
Okay, so hold on a second. So we just mentioned three things there, and then let's just cover that real quick, and then we can take a deeper dive on each one of those. So Truckee Home Area Preservation, is that what it is, right?
Truckee Home Access Program.
Truckee Home Access Plan?
Program.
Okay, well, that's what the P is. Truckee Home Access Program. So that is another way to get your hands on some funding, but you have to deed restrict the property, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then the other one was Hopkins Village, which is a community of townhomes that are complete, and there's a few left,
Right.
And then the other one was the Placer WIP, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with THAP. How does the THAP program work?
So THAP is within town of Truckee limits only. So even for that small section of Sierra Meadows that falls into Placer County, you're going to use Placer WIP for that. You're not going to use town of Truckee. So it's got to be within those limits within the Nevada County portion.
So town of Truckee, town limits.
Town of Truckee, yes. Yeah. And then they will give you 16% down payment up to $150,000. There's a purchase price cap, initial purchase price cap of $937,500. And the qualifications for that program are meeting the income guidelines, which is 240% of the area median income. So very high, very easy to qualify for. You have to be working within the school district. The house has to be in those limits. And you also have asset limitations. So you can't have too much in the bank that is non-retirement after closing. So you basically got to put up your own. If you have an overage, you got to put up your own money first, and then they'll give you the assistance.
Gotcha. Okay. And then where can the people find those dollar amounts?
So the THAP website has all of that. And again, they're the same. All of these programs are the same. They're going to want a pre-approval from an approved lender with their program. So before you fill out the application, you got to start with a regular lender.
Right.
Their application online will ask for you to upload that. So program guidelines are all on their website. And they also have, all of these programs have wonderful administrators that are happy to talk through with any client whatever they want to know about the programs too.
And we should probably point out that for all of these programs, the first place to start is with an approved lender, because if you can't get the loan, there's no point in trying to figure out if you can get the assistance, right?
Yes, 100%.
Right. So we talked about the THAP, we talked about the Martis Fund. Tell us about the Placer WIP program.
All right. So Placer WIP mirrors the THAP program in many, many ways. There are some key differences. Placer, again, you still have to be employed within the school district, but there are no income cap. There's no income limit at all. So you can make as much money as you want. As long as you're a local worker, you're going to qualify for that piece of the program. And so they are probably the most liberal of all of them. Those are really the main points for that one. Really not very restrictive.
What are the deed restrictions though?
So the deed restriction is for both of those programs that you are guaranteeing that when you go to sell your property, you're going to be selling to a local who qualifies for those programs. And also you need to meet those requirements. Like for Placer, there has to be somebody in the household that is a local worker at any time, at any given time. So if you change jobs, right, you start working in Reno or something, that can present an issue for the continuing occupancy that they monitor over the years.
So a couple questions. First, let's start with on the deed restriction. When you sell the property, you've got to sell it to somebody else that is qualified through the program.
Yes.
Are there restrictions on how much you sell the property for?
No.
No. Okay. So if you buy the house right now, the limit was $940,000, I think is what you said.
$937,500 on THAP. Placer does not have
no limits. Okay. So if you buy a house for $900,000 and you live there for 5 years and now it's worth $1,250,000, you can sell it for that $1,250,000 so long as the next person that buys it is able to qualify for the same program.
Correct.
What happens if you don't have somebody that can buy it?
That remains to be seen. We haven't seen a ton of resale yet because these programs are pretty new. They're based off of programs that have been very successful in other, ski resort areas
Sure.
like ours and across the country. But that is a real possibility, right? And I think in my mind, as I walk through it, if I were using it for myself, just being honest, if I was in those higher price points, like a 900,000, how many locals can qualify for a $900,000 house?
Right. That's tough.
But
Yeah.
if you're buying a 600,000, what, a fixer upper,
Sure.
an entry level,
Yeah.
tons of locals can qualify for that.
Right.
So I like it better for the lower price points than higher.
Yes. Okay. Makes sense. And you mentioned that if you move out of the area, not if you move out of the area, if your employment changes to out of area, is that a possibility that they could call the note due?
I'd have to double check on specifically, but yes, there's a possibility of that. However, I do know that they are not there to do that. That's not their desire, but
Right.
they'll work with you to okay, how do we get a plan to bring this back into compliance?
Got it. How many buyers are you working with right now that are actually taking advantage of these programs?
Quite a few. So I think in 2024, they have carried, I don't have the statistics offhand, but they have carried me through many months of our loans on our team. We had a big summer using a lot of them and got some really awesome locals into some houses. So I do know that for THAP, they have done 17 houses into the program.
Awesome. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. There are some very real, very accessible ways to help you get into housing if you are working and desiring to be living within basically the Tahoe-Truckee Unified School District boundaries, which is a pretty big area. If you have any further questions about that or want to talk to Chelsea about getting qualified, you can reach out to her here at the number below or shoot us an email or give me a call anytime, and we'll be happy to try and get some more of these locals in houses. Chelsea, thanks so much for coming today. I really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.